All right, welcome to another episode of Dids in the Dugout. I'm here with the second episode with Chad Flowers. Chad, appreciate you joining me again, man.
Yeah, man, glad to be
Man,
here.
Good, good. Well, how's everything going out in California?
It's apparently a lot better than it is in Mississippi right now. I'm not dealing with the heat wave that y'all are, so I'm not too upset about that whatsoever.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty brutal here in North Mississippi. But going into game week and all that though, we get a little bit of a breather. We're supposed to get down into the upper 80s about midway through next week, and then low 90s there around kickoff for Ole Miss and Mercer. So we got a little bit of a breather coming our way, hopefully.
I cannot wait for next weekend. I'm not going to do a whole lot. I'm going to lose a lot of money, and I'm going to watch a lot of football, man.
Yeah, but how much money are you gonna lose in week 0?
Probably more than I should, but
Yeah.
that's the way it goes, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, all right, so that's actually a good transition. Speaking of money, this past week, the Growth Collective had its week of giving, right?
Yeah, they sure
Uh,
did.
yeah, had a real big Monday. That was they had all the coaches on YouTube and stuff like
Hmm.
that, doing interviews with them. Raised 1 point something million that first day, and last count I had, it was up to 2.1 million this week towards a goal of three million. So that's a pretty good start, I think.
You got to think Lane Kiffin, who, he was kind of taking some veiled shots last year about
Mhm.
money and NIL. And, now you've got Chris Beard coming in, wondering how is this going to work at Ole Miss, a traditionally not a big basketball school. You got to be tickled pink to see the type of money that the fan base is raising right now, assuming, hell, just 2.1 in the few days that they've done it, getting up to 3 million. That's nothing to sneeze at. Now, obviously, we don't have all the numbers for the other collectives around the country, but hey, this is showing that Ole Miss is really making a commitment to not only just be happy to be in the SEC, but they want to compete with some of the biggest programs in the country.
Yeah, and obviously me and Chad aren't reporters, media members,
Right.
stuff like that locked
right.
into the Ole Miss athletic department. But the people that are, you listen to you know, Neil McCready, Chase Parham, Ben Garrett, Chuck, David Johnson, they all talk about where Ole Miss is as far as NIL goes, from a competitive standpoint, and
Right.
apparently we're
Right.
right up there with everybody, even though nobody knows the exact number, right? But
Sure.
you can really look at the recruiting part of it though, and tell that we're absolutely in that upper echelon of teams, not only in SEC but the country. Because I mean, look what not only Lane Kiffin's doing on the recruiting trail right now, but what
Hmm.
Chris Beard's doing, and from everything I've heard, basketball is where the numbers are absolutely outrageous right now, and Beard's able to get all of these transfers in. He's recruiting high school players at a really high level, guys that would never even have Ole Miss on their radar, which
No.
Chris Beard's a big part of that, right? But because he has that reputation. But NIL definitely plays a big part of that. And apparently Ole Miss is doing real, and you've got a baseball program that just won a national championship 2 years ago too, right? So they're going to get their cut on top of it, and it kind of speaks volumes that all three programs are able to pull from the same war chest, so to speak, and still be as competitive as we are so far, I think.
Right, and don't forget, you have some women's teams that are really excelling. You just recently had a national championship in women's golf. The women's basketball team, Coach Yo, took them to the Sweet 16 after beating top-ranked Stanford. So, yeah, there's a lot of programs that are continue or should continue to rise with all the resources that the program is presumably going to have. And it was a really bad athletic year last year all around, but it does seem like things are going to be a lot better on the horizon.
Yeah, and I think we got the right guys in place for all of it
For
too.
sure.
Look at
100%.
Beard and Yo on the basketball side, and then Kiffin and Bianco too. Things are definitely looking up for Ole Miss athletics. So, but speaking of NIL and recruiting and stuff like that, we haven't talked since Kamari and Franklin made the big announcement this past Saturday, right? Big
Yeah.
5-star defensive lineman coming into Oxford. That's another guy. We're in on Mississippi kids here and there historically, right?
Uh-huh.
But in this NIL world, you weren't sure if you're going to be able to pull this big 5-star and get him to campus. But Randall Joyner, from everything I've heard, was absolutely instrumental in getting him here. There's a great relationship there. Obviously, Pete Golding, his reputation, along with Lane Kiffin too. And then you just look up and down this recruiting class right now. It's stacked full of defensive linemen right now. You've got Cam Beavers. He's another 4-star. Jeffrey Rush, another 4-star.
Yeah.
Will Eccles from Houston. I think he ends up on the defensive line when he gets to Oxford, Mississippi. He plays both ways there in Houston, obviously. But that's another testament to the NIL fund being as big as it is and being able to keep these guys home, which I think is a really big deal for Ole Miss in particular.
Well, yeah, because I mean, when you think about some of the top players in the state the last few years, there's always that fear that they're not necessarily going to choose between us and state. It's
Mhm.
are they going to Georgia? Are they going to Alabama? LSU? Look at N'Kobe Dean, right? Came out of Horn Lake, went to Georgia, where he was unbelievable, right? For the longest time, it was almost like you can't really count on Ole Miss or even Mississippi State getting the top prospects in the state because for a state with a small population like Mississippi is, per capita, there's some real good talent. Like you look at all the players that State and Ole Miss are putting into the pros that have come from the state of Mississippi, it's impressive. And now that maybe Lane Kiffin can put a fence around Mississippi and be able to keep some of those top prospects,
Yeah.
man, it only speaks to where the program's going to go because we know what he's able to do in the transfer portal. Hopefully NIL is going to be able to get a lot of out-of-state players as well. It really bodes well. And you got to think Pete Golding plays a huge role in being able to get these in-state guys because he's from Mississippi, right? Played at Delta State. He knows Mississippi. He knows the type of players that are here. So you would hope to think that that's helping because I would imagine he played a big role in Alabama's recruiting for the state.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it did. And also, if you want to look at more guys on staff that'll help with that in-state recruiting, I think Derek Nix is entering his 90th year in Oxford this year.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
He's been an absolute staple in Oxford, been huge in recruiting this state. So I'm sure he had a little hand in it too. He can get you in places that other programs probably don't have an in on. So that's always a nice card to have in your back pocket too. So and I think it's interesting talking about this defensive line class. It's almost like a philosophy shift, right? We've been so heavy on the portal these last, two years with Lane Kiffin, but all of a sudden you're kind of seeing where they're wanting to go with their high school recruiting. I think the trenches is where they're wanting to get their high school guys at, get them in the program, develop them, and have them help your team, right? And I think this defensive line class is a great example of it. I think last year's offensive line class was a really good look at it too, because we had a big offensive line year class last year. We used several scholarships on guys coming out of high school on the offensive line last year. So when you do that and you're taking more high school guys, theoretically that makes you more of a higher end player in the portal, right? Because
you
you're
would
not
think so.
having to spread your funds around to so many different guys. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And I think the one thing that we really want to focus on here with an emphasis on the defensive line, a good defensive line hides a lot of warts in other
Yeah.
areas of your defense, right? If you're not having to rely on linebackers making tackles or linemen getting to that second level because, we don't have any pressure on the defensive line or having to rely on defensive back making so many tackles, which it feels like we've been having to do for the last 7 or 8 years. In creating a stable, right? Depth has always been the thing. It feels like with Ole Miss, we're able to get a lot of top athletes, right? But the 2 deep, the 3 deep, that's where you really separate your schools like Alabama, Georgia. That's where you really start seeing the separation between programs like Ole Miss and Mississippi State to those programs is because of the depth and being able to get people that are going to stay in Oxford because you're getting them out of high school. Hopefully that NIL money will keep them here and they understand the plan that they're not going to play right away, right? Because that kind of feels like the tendency in college football right now. If I'm not playing, then I'm leaving. I'm going to find somewhere else that I can play. But hopefully they can buy into the vision and maybe even some of them are going to see a lot of playing time early on and, build that reputation of, hey, if you want to be a good defensive lineman, you can come to Oxford and compete and you're going to end up making some money in the future.
Yeah. And I think Golding has a reputation as well as
Absolutely.
As far as transitional in and out too, though, right? He's not going to play one guy to death all game. He's going to keep subbing guys in and out as long as he has the depth to do it. Because kind of piggybacking off what you're saying there, if you're really talented in your 1 deep or even 2 deep, I mean, if you even go that far, it's really important to get to that third guy because if not, you're one injury away from
Right.
really being in trouble, right?
Yeah.
Because if a guy's going to sit out there and play 90 something plays in a game, well, by the time you get halfway through the third quarter, fourth quarter, he's going to be completely gassed, and you're not going to get anything out of him. It kind of happened last year, really, with the running back room, right, against Alabama, because after Zach Evans went down, Bentley was already hurt. And
Yeah.
of course, we had this freshman stud in Judkins, but that last drive, we're driving to try to win the game. We got to pass in the air to win it there in the last 25, 20 seconds, whatever it was. But Kiffin talked about how he didn't have the ability to get his best player on the field the ball because Quinshon was so worn out.
He was gassed.
Yeah, I mean, he was just completely gassed. So obviously, depth, really big deal, though, right? I mean, you're absolutely right about that. That's one thing you got to build here. But I think it's a good start on the defensive line. I think that's where they got to start. I think there's a change of philosophy there. So I really love seeing that, getting these guys out of high school here and go ahead and get them in this program and try to get them in the system and start working them into the games. These guys are going to play, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're good enough to play in the SEC, you may not start, but they're going to sit there and they're going to rotate you in and out. That way you can get your experience. So I think that's really big.
It all, not to cut you off, but it sounds like Ole Miss may be getting another commit here before long. Another in-state guy, Noreel White from wide receiver from Ocean Springs, right? He decommitted from Arkansas. A lot of people are saying that he's a 4-star receiver, if I'm not mistaken. It sounds like he's going to be another addition to Oxford, which obviously we're talking the offensive side of the ball with a wide receiver. But in this offense, you can never have enough, skill guys, and adding someone like that, I'll be more than happy to take it.
Yeah. Again, building depth. That's probably one area we're hurting right now on the offensive side of the ball is wide receiver depth, right?
Yep.
We think we've got some guys that can really contribute. Now, I think it'll help this year because of how deep we are at tight end.
Yes.
Prescorn being as good as they think he's going to be, right? All the reports coming out with him. Kyron Heath is apparently really flashed, really developed from a true freshman to a sophomore, which is what you expect. He was thrown there last year. He wasn't really ready, but they really love him as a pass catcher. And then Trigg, his reports coming out. He's kind of bouncing back a little bit right now, Chad.
Okay.
He's getting out of the doghouse a little bit. If he can ever get out of the doghouse and get on the field and be completely focused on doing that, he's the type of talent that could really, really do something great in this offense. And if you have tight ends that can get on the field, all three of those guys, if they needed to, could split out into the slot to keep the same personnel on the field to where you're not subbing in and out, and also not wearing your receivers out to death, right? I mean, if Prescorn, Heath, Trigg, obviously, if they can get out there and an up-tempo offense, slide out to the slot and still run the same plays.
It feels like, though, for being honest, it feels like with Trigg, right? If you just go outside and
yeah,
right. Okay. Oh, okay. He's in the doghouse this hour. Oh, okay. Everything's good again. Okay. Everything. It's a lot of drama regarding him. So I don't know if you start wondering, man, let's just try to focus on what the offense is going to be without him, because I don't know if we can rely on him or not. It'd be great to have him. Be great to have him, but I don't know if we can rely on it.
Yeah, you got 2 lottery tickets at tight end. You've got you got Trigg, and then you got Hudson Wolf. He's back on the field after 2 years of injuries. He was a highly regarded prospect coming out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of back injury stuff like that's kept him off the field. But apparently he's practicing. He's back on the field. That's another lottery ticket to go along with Trigg, to go along with 2 more tight ends that you can expect to contribute. So if you can hit on one of them to be a contributor of some kind, then that's just more depth that not only goes into your tight end, but I think can also branch out to help your receivers too.
Yeah, I completely agree. You got to think that Jackson Dart is going to only benefit from having a big body that he can go to in the middle of the field, like a Prescorn, right? And so I would only think that's going to continue to make Quinshon better, because we don't have to rely so much on the running game. So having that big body that we're going to be able to expose in the middle of the field, I think that can really take this offense to the next level. If there is a next level, because like we talked about last time, is the red zone. Hopefully that tight end position is really going to take that.
I mean, in the red zones where you're going to use those big tight ends, those big bodies, try to get it up when you're not feeding it to Quinshon. Now, if it's me, I'm just giving it to Quinshon and let number 4 get in there. But Lane's always been really good with tight ends too. I mean, you've seen it throughout his entire career leading up to him getting to Oxford, how good he was at tight end. So really excited about that, obviously. So that's something to watch here in the early part of the season. See who all gets out there, see who all contributes for us. But before we get to the Ole Miss Mercer week, we have week 0 coming up, Chad.
Big, huge games that I can't wait for them. I mean, you're talking Hawaii and Vanderbilt. You've got UTEP and Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State first game as an FBS team.
With Rich Rod.
Yes, Rich Rod. You've got USC and San Jose State. I mean, we're talking just the games that everybody's looking for, right?
You actually haven't mentioned the big one yet. You got Notre Dame Navy as well.
Yeah, from Ireland. Yeah.
I'm actually way more excited about week 0 than I should be. I completely admit that. But I can't wait to settle in on Saturday, get up and put something on the grill around 9:30, something like that, and just let it start cooking slow. And
have you already decided what you're cooking?
No, I haven't. I've got to get with Jackbone and see what he's feeling, right? I mean, I can't go off the rails and just do it without him. There's got to be something he wants. I'm really hoping I can talk Di into making some of these bacon wrapped water chestnuts that she does. That way, throw those on the grill, because I'll eat 150 of those before I left the burger she does. Those things are fantastic. So, really excited about week 0, though. I'm way more interested in Vanderbilt and Hawaii than I should be. For whatever reason, I think Vandy's going to be okay. Now, they're not going to be – I don't even think they're going to be a bowl team, right? But for a team that's projected in Vegas to win 3.5 games, I think they're incredibly underrated from that
standpoint. And they won 5 last year, right? A.J. Swan is not a bad quarterback.
No,
in the first half of the game last year against Ole Miss, their offense – it was frustrating, but we couldn't really stop their offense very well, right? They have some offensive talent. And like I said, the last time we talked, I think Clark Lee is a great coach. So it's still Vanderbilt at the end of the day, but it's also Hawaii. Hawaii is losing a lot on defense. Now, I think they are returning their quarterback, which is always helpful in that system that Timmy Chang's going to run. But I'm kind of with you. I like the 17.5 with Vanderbilt. I think that's what I've seen it at.
Yeah, so, that's about 17.5. So I'm really big on Vanderbilt this week.
I don't know what the sound. There's music coming out. Hold on just a second.
Oh, what are you playing?
I don't know I don't know what's going on.
Is it Wayne?
No, it's not Wayne. I can't name the Wayne song. Oh, I had TikTok open. Okay, that's what it was.
Oh.
Jesus Christ. So hopefully we can edit some of that out.
No, it's not going to be edited. It's all going to be in there. So we're good.
Oh, cool. All right. Yeah. So, that was me being an idiot. I had my phone in between my legs and I turned on TikTok.
Yeah, no, we don't edit anything on the show, man. You get everything real life here, okay? Just
yeah, that's good audio. I don't know what that was, but fuck me.
So one thing I did want to ask you about leading up into week 0.
Yep.
How much do you think these new rules with the clock will affect totals when it comes to gambling? Right?
Yeah,
unders will be a play early on until Vegas is able to adjust to what it really looks like.
I would say Vegas is already adjusted, right? I mean, I'm sure that they're already accounting for it. Now, whether or not they've adjusted enough is obviously going to be the question, but I would not just immediately start banking on unders, because I mean, if we're to think that, Vegas just found out about the rule change and they didn't adjust for it, no, I'm sure that's all baked into the lines that they've already created. But obviously, they just don't know exactly how much. But I mean, I'd probably swing the other way and say there's probably going to be a lot of people hammering the unders because of that, and you're going to get some good value on the overs because of that. That would probably be the way that I'm looking with some of these games. Like even the USC San Jose State game, I love USC because I think that they're going to try to get Caleb Williams the Heisman, which he's not going to have to work too hard because he's already going to be the front runner. But they're going to put up points on San Jose State. And San Jose State's got a decent quarterback that they're returning. So I actually like the over and USC this weekend. But, I'm going to shade a little bit more toward the overs only because I think that there's going to be people hammering the unders because they think that Vegas didn't adjust.
Okay, that's interesting. I actually haven't heard that take yet. So I was looking a little more further into the season, and Ole Miss and Tulane's total is like 76.5 or something like that. Now, that's a little too high, right?
Well, you would think that the defense is going to be better. You would think that the offense is going to put more points in the end zone, but I mean, obviously, I'm being very wishy-washy here, but yes, it does feel a little underish to me because I have to think that we're going to be able to stop someone consistently this year, and I'll say that the Tulane game will be kind of the start of it because I don't really count next week against Mercer.
No, no, but I will tell you, if that Mercer Week 0 game is anywhere on television, I'm going to find it Saturday, and I'm going to be locked in because I
Oh
got to
well,
see.
yeah. I mean, I'm going to watch it for sure. I'm sure it's on the SEC Network Plus or something like that.
No, no, no. Mercer plays Week 0.
Oh, they do. Okay, who are they playing?
Uh,
I'll
God,
put you
who
on the
is it?
spot.
Yeah, you did. It's an Alabama school. I can't remember who it is. I don't know, but
Okay,
it
well, I'll
doesn't
look
really
it up.
matter because if that
Yeah.
affects our game, kind of like you told me a couple weeks ago, then we're in more trouble than we thought.
Yeah, if that's going to have any bearing, any weight on what happens in our game, then yeah, we might as well just start focus on basketball season.
Yeah, yeah, which I'm also really excited about. So, well, before we get out of here, something else I wanted to touch on Wednesday night, it kind of started breaking a little bit that the ACC was going to expand with
Hmm.
Stanford, Cal, and SMU. Last I saw, there it was going to bring in an additional $72 million to the grant of rights deal, which
Hmm.
is a really big deal. All of this is
Sure.
connected to money, right? I mean, it's all
Hmm.
about who can get the most money at whatever times. I thought it was really interesting that Cal and Stanford were able to find a place to go. I
Hmm.
wasn't sure they were going to be able to do anything, but man, that's a long way cross country, right? For football, basketball, and baseball. What,
Yeah,
what, what now I take back. I think baseball's not a part of it. I think it's women's basketball, men's basketball, and football. I think those are the three sports that
if those are the only, well, that I would need to check on that because I think what made the most sense for Cal and Stanford to go to the ACC is because of their Olympic sports, right? Because that's where
Mhm.
Cal and Stanford really shine above everyone
Yeah.
else, is their water polos and all those different things. And the Mountain West and the AAC, two conferences that were kind of, hey, you should come there. Those don't compare. So I would think that it would be more sports than just that. And obviously, I don't have the information in front of me to confirm
Yeah.
that. But I would think most of the Olympic sports would go ACC only because that's where the real value is. Because if we're being honest, football, they'd be probably middle tier, upper middle tier in the Mountain West, right? Cal and Stanford have not been very good the last few years. And in basketball, they haven't been real good either. So I think that the Ace and the SMU's just got to be tickled pink because
Right. But I
they
mean,
don't
they get
they
a
don't
huge upgrade here.
they get a huge
And
upgrade.
it could be an absolute launching pad for them too. That's a school that does have a lot of money. There's
Yep.
been a lot of talk for the last month or so that donors are finally trying to commit to the programs, right, and try to commit
Mhm.
to NIL. Obviously, an area of the country with a ton of talent. If they end
Yep.
up getting their NIL straightened out and then getting into a conference like the ACC and they have that extra TV money coming in on top of it, this could really be a jumping off point for SMU. I think they're the big winners here, and
Oh
quite
yeah.
frankly, I'm just not even concerned with Stanford and Cal all that much.
I wonder. I was reading an article on it today, and I think part of this is they're trying to appease Florida State and
Mhm.
Clemson because I think part of this deal with Cal and Stanford is they're not going to get a full share right off the bat. They're going to get only a portion of the money because
Right.
the big point of contention with Florida State and Clemson is they feel like they're pulling all their weight with football, which in fairness they are,
Sure. Yeah.
and they feel like they should be getting more than the even share like the SEC does, right? Everybody gets the same amount in the SEC. But,
Vanderbilt and Georgia make the same amount of money.
yeah, which is great for schools like Ole Miss State and all the other ones. But yeah, so I wonder if this is going to satisfy because, if you remember a few weeks ago when they were talking about, Notre Dame was really pushing for Cal and Stanford because they're a full voting member, which is weird to me since they don't have football in the ACC. But North Carolina, North Carolina State, Clemson, and Florida State were the ones that voted against Cal and Stanford. So I would wonder and you only needed one of those to flip. So it's going to be interesting to see what is causing that to happen because I still don't think Florida State and Clemson are long for the conference. I think they're going to look for a way out.
Yeah. Last I heard, I think it was North Carolina and North Carolina State both flipped their votes to yes.
Oh,
And
okay.
if I remember correctly, which I may have the school wrong, but I think it was North Carolina State back when they voted 2 weeks ago or whenever that first vote was,
Hmm.
when Notre Dame was pushing so hard for them to get in. The North Carolina State AD told them that, hey, if you join in football, then I'll change my vote
Yeah.
to yes.
And Notre Dame's
Right?
never going to do that.
No, they're not going to do that.
No.
So, but yes, it will be interesting to see how that all shakes out, see what comes out of it. Obviously, all this conference realignment is so crazy. I still think it's so dumb that two California schools are joining the
Yeah.
Atlantic Coast Conference, right? I mean, even with the partial share, I guess it would make sense for them because without it, they didn't really have a home. But I mean, I can't see where it's going to be very profitable for the two athletic departments with
No.
all of the travel that's going to be going into it. But again, that's one thing we got to wait and see how it all shakes out. So, I think that's about all I got here for today. Do you got anything you want to add?
Well, I do want to say Mercer is playing North Alabama, and I do
Alabama.
Bleav it's going to be on ESPN, so it should be
Okay.
viewable. I think the game time is 12:30. I think that's going to be my time. So yeah, so 2:30 your time. It looks like it's going to be on ESPN.
Shoot, yeah, I'll be good to pull by then. We'll be pulling stuff off the grill. That should be about the third grilling segment we have of the day there when we get in those 2:30 games, start putting stuff on for dinner at that point. So yeah, we're really looking forward to that. I can't wait to go up there and tell Dad that he's going to be tuning in for North Alabama and Mercer come 2:30 Saturday.
I'm sure
That's gonna
Jackie's going to be really excited for that.
Oh man, he's going to be tickled to death. I know him too well at this point. He probably doesn't even know we play Mercer right now. That's probably why he's going to wonder why we're watching that game. So, but once I tell him, he's going to be all fired up about it, and he's going to be locked into it, and we're going to be pulling pork loins and hopefully bacon wrapped water chestnuts off, and we're going to be settling in while the kids play in a hot tub in 100 and something degree weather. And
Football's back, man. Everybody rejoice.
Right.
We made it. We survived another year.
I know, man. I can't believe it, but yeah, we did. So, all right, buddy. Well, again, I appreciate you joining me again this week.
Sure.
Hopefully we'll get to do it again next week or the week after. Whatever we can do. Whatever your schedule allows. So, but we'll be in touch, and appreciate you coming on again, bud.
Sounds good, buddy. Howdy toddy.
All right, hi, Toddy.